All right, so this is another video in my series of rehab projects we've done over the years. This particular one was in Gastonia, North Carolina. So just starting with the project overview, like I said, it was in Gastonia. It was 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. It was built in 1927, so a little age on this one. It had a Tudor style, which you'll see in the photos, and it was just under 2,500 square feet. So, and actually included a basement as well. So, the seller situation is an estate property that had been inherited by a brother and a sister, and they were both out of town, and they were basically just looking for an easy process to sell and not have to deal with any kind of repairs or anything like that. The house had been sitting abandoned for a couple years and had been subject to some vandalism and break-ins. And there was actually some safety concerns with an outbuilding that had caught the attention of the local code enforcement officials. So they were starting to get some mounting violations. So there was some pressure and urgency to try to get something resolved. So in terms of the purchase, this was a cash purchase. We covered all the buyer and seller closing costs to make it simple. There weren't any realtor commissions or anything like that as well. We purchased it as is with no repairs, which they really liked, and then we actually let them leave anything in the house that they wanted to. So that made it easy for them since they were out of towners. This was actually a huge renovation project. Probably one of our biggest, honestly. Just you'll see in the photos that it was just in such condition that that's the direction it went. But electrical, this actually had knob and tube wiring throughout. So it was a full rewire, new breaker box, everything, new electrical, new fixtures. Plumbing was fully replumbed. I think we did salvage a few of the drain lines, but for the most part, it was fully replumbed, all new supply lines. We actually trenched a new main line to the street as well. We relocated the washer and dryer. It was formerly in the basement, so we moved that off of the kitchen for a little more convenient access up to the first floor, rather than having to go to the basement. The HVAC system was actually in pretty good shape, so we just serviced the unit and put in a new thermostat. Structural, there was some rotted framing due to some water damage. I believe there may be a tree or branch or something had fallen into a part of the roof structure and created a hole. And so some water had been getting in over those couple of years that the house was abandoned. So there was some framing repairs that took place. As for the kitchen, just like most of our renovation projects, we actually gutted it all the way down to the studs. And just completely started brand new, basically. And in doing so, we actually framed a new pantry, and that's when we framed in the laundry room as well. Bathrooms, again, a full gut down to the studs, complete restart. There was actually there was some really cool pedestal sinks that just had a really old school feel about them, and you could tell that it was something we should try to save or do something with. So we actually saved those pedestal sinks and had those reglazed or refinished from a local company. And then one of the tubs actually there was 2 tubs. We both had those refinished as well. So we were able to salvage those. Like I mentioned before, we framed the new pantry and laundry room. Flooring. So it actually had existing hardwoods in a good majority of the house outside of the kitchen and bathroom. So we actually refinished those hardwoods and then installed tile in the kitchen and bathrooms. The roof, we did a full replacement on that. It actually had 2 layers of shingles on it. So it was a pretty good project getting that all cleaned up. Exterior trim, just because of the deferred maintenance over the years. There was a lot of fascia damage, and a lot of that had to do with gutters that were stopped up and letting water kind of flow backward toward the fascia and the actual roof, structure, rather than making its way down the downspouts and whatnot. So there were a lot of fascia repairs. There was a lot of trim repairs around windows and doors. And especially just because of so much of the deferred maintenance, really, what that came down to. But we did some minor landscaping. The budget on the house, we went fairly over our budget. So at the end of the day, the landscaping we did, we cleaned it up, but we didn't invest a ton in that. There was an outbuilding, like I mentioned before, that needed to be addressed, and it was so dilapidated, it just made sense to tear it down. So we did that, and then the basement had some cleanup that we had to do, and there was one leaky wall that we had to install, like a basically what's like a gutter system for a leaky basement wall, so the water can exit. All right, so before and after photos. All right, so starting with the exterior, you can see here is it almost looks a little bit like a haunted house when you look at it. But this is where it was at when we actually purchased it. You can tell it has a neat Tudor style about it. You can tell there was a lot of potential just with the design and what we started with. And then you can see, after all our hard work, what it went to. So really big change. Like I said, new roof made a big difference right off the bat, but addressing all these fascia and trim issues. You can see there, we took a lot of this trim and some of that Tudor trim work off and replaced it, and then did a whole new paint job on the outside, all new gutters. You can see that little bit of landscaping. We did a little bit of some stepping stones and that sort of thing to give it a little entrance there, but you can tell it made a really big difference. Again, this is a close-up of the front door entrance. And you can just see what cleaning it up and pressure washing it and everything else, what that did for the property. It really had so much potential. All right, so this is a back view. I think this is the best picture I had from the back. And then you can see what it came down to. So we actually did a lot of work on this front right section over here. That's little, it's not really a sunroom. It's more just a covered entrance, really, that goes into the kitchen. So there was a lot of wood decay in that particular little structure. So we ended up replacing a lot of that and rescreening it. All right, so the outbuilding, this was what was getting the code enforcement violations. You can see it's pretty dilapidated. It looks like it's ready to collapse, basically. So when there's safety concerns like that in a neighborhood, especially when you have kids, unfortunately, they may trespass and go on the property and see this and want to wander into it. It could turn into a bad situation. So that's why code enforcement violations had mounted against this property, because this was a safety issue. So we actually ended up tearing this down. And you can see what was left over after we did all that. But we did away with the eyesore there. All right, so the kitchen. And this is exactly what the property looked like when we purchased it. Like I'd said earlier, the sellers, they had no interest in cleaning it up. They had no interest. I think they took some of their keepsakes and these sort of things, maybe some family heirlooms, got those out just before we closed. But for the most part, the house was pretty well full of a lot of stuff, I'll call it. So you can see the transformation there. We really did. It was a labor of love, this house. It had plaster walls, and that, if you've ever dealt with plaster walls, it's not an easy task doing demo work on that sort of thing. So plaster all the way throughout, demoed it down, and just did a complete new restart. So really turned out with a nice clean look. Again, here's another view. Okay, and then another view looking back toward the remainder of the house, kind of from that entrance of that little screened-in area we were looking at earlier. You can see a big change there. All right, so living room. All right, again, a lot of stuff in the house, and then you can see after we cleaned it up what it came out to. So it really turned out beautiful. The floors were they were actually wider plank board. Which in a lot of the houses we do that have existing hardwoods, they're usually kind of a smaller width on them, but these had a nice wide look, and they were actually face nailed. In most hardwoods, they're actually nail into what would be the tongue of the board, and then the groove covers that, and you continuously work across the floor, and you don't see any of the nail marks or anything like that. But these were actually face nailed, which just gave it like a really rustic character that fit well with the Tudor style of the home. We did rework. I believe we reworked a couple of the beams that had a little damage to them, and then we were able to kind of restain those and get them looking good. We installed the can lights. That was a new feature that wasn't there. And you can kind of see as we get more into the photos, you'll see we tried to maintain the rustic feel that the house actually had before we started on it. So we tried to actually match the lighting. That was a really big thing I focused on, was finding lights that were a really close match. So you can't really see it from this photo, but moving into the next few photos, you'll see what I'm talking about. Here's another view of the living room looking back toward what would be the hallway and the bedrooms. And you can see just what cleaning it up and new paint and everything else, just it did so much. Like I said, it was just so much potential. All right, so the dining room, and you'll get a chance to see the light here. So if you pay attention to that light, you'll see we tried to replicate that the best we could with a modern look. And pretty well matched up. It was a really close fixture that we were able to find there. And that was actually a series that we came across, and just about all the fixtures in that series matched up with the lights that were in the house. All right, so there you can see, this is what I was talking about earlier, that the house had been broken into. There had been some vandalism going on. So you can see maybe some kids or something had gotten in and were doing putting some graffiti on the walls. But again, if you pay attention to the lighting, you can see that little small fixture right there to the right of that door on the left. You can see we kind of matched it up. There was actually two of them. But yeah, it turned out really good. Study. Okay, so this was just a little room off the living room, and it really was like a little study. It was mostly had shelves for books and that sort of thing. It looked like someone at some point probably used it kind of like an office, but it was just a nice little nook with the fireplace and everything. So it turned out really well once we cleaned it up. You can see what just paint did for this property. It was such a kind of a dark, had a dark feel about it, and just the white paint and the light gray that we went with really helped it pop. So this was kind of a first here for me. So I remember going through this property and I saw a lawnmower, and I thought, well, this is interesting. So anyway, doing away with the lawnmower and all the junk in the room, it really made a big difference. It was actually the master, and it was nice. It had a fireplace. That was a really cool accent to have, and for wood, it was actually a wood burning fireplace. All right, so the master bath. There had been some water damage in this area, but you can pay attention to that pedestal sink. Actually, you can see a little snippet of the bath right there, though. But we actually refinished both of those, or had them reclazed, so we were able to salvage those. And you can see what it turned out like. And in our selections, we did try to maintain kind of an old, maybe 1920s style, which the subway tile is relatively timeless. You've seen it hold up over all the years. Of course, it's gotten pretty popular over the last several years, but our tile selections, even for the floor, we went with kind of a hexagon style mosaic, and we just felt like that really fit the time frame of the house, the year it was built. Again, you can see the tub there. And it's actually really kind of an interesting tub. I really haven't seen many of those in that style. And this is kind of a look back across the corner into the opposite corner there. All right, so the second bedroom. Again, there was just so much stuff in this house. It was ridiculous, actually. Actually, there's another lawnmower there too. So anyway, we cleaned it up, and you can see how far it came. All right, moving on to the third bedroom. All right, so this room actually didn't have too much stuff in it. This is a little more straightforward. Again, just getting it nice and cleaned up. You can see a nice and neat job. All right, so the hall bath. Again, this is, I've talked about this in, I think, other videos, but these small bathrooms, unless you have like a wide lens camera, it's hard to get good shots. So I'm just kind of cranked in here trying to get the best photos I can. But anyway, you can see the pedestal sink there. You can see kind of the old style fixture. We did try to replicate that with the fixtures we chose, the actual plumbing fixtures. And you actually see they fit up pretty well. Those were the cross style handles, you can see. And so it was almost a light for light match, even in the spout. So it turned out really nice. Again, so tight in this bathroom, but you can at least see the tub and what it looked like before. You can see the nice chrome fixtures that just kind of looks like a 1920s kind of style. Really did a lot for the bathrooms. All right, so that basically wraps up the video. This was a huge project. Would I go back and do it again? I don't know. It was a massive undertaking, and a lot of my family, we all worked on that one together, and it was a really difficult project, had a lot of challenges, and anyway, we learned a lot, that's for sure. So, but anyway, if you got any questions or want to learn more about us, we're a company that buys houses and land in any condition. We take on these difficult projects and usually buy houses that other people aren't interested in, or maybe they're a little intimidated by. So anyway, you can contact us at 704-727-6161. You can email us at info@m1propertygroup.com, or you can fill out a web form at our site at www.m1propertygroup.com. Again, I appreciate you checking out the video, and I look forward to working together.